Today on Locked On Canadiens, in honor of Lane Hutson's season review day, we make the claim that Lane Hutson is going to break Larry Robinson's records.
You are Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into episode 1322 of Locked On Canadiens. Thank you so much for joining us, for subscribing, and making us your first listen of the day. Every day, we are Locked On Canadiens. We are your team every day. My name is Ian Boisvert, also known as that Maybe It's Ian, and I'm joined by Laura Saba. Laura, the Laval Rocket lose, and their season is over. But I'm so excited to talk about Lane Hutson today. I almost don't care at all. Is that okay? We just watched this team lose, and I'm kind of over it already.
We're gonna be fine. I think it happens. It's like we're gonna eulogize the series. I think the body of work Laval put together over the course of the regular season speaks for itself. We're not gonna pay any attention to some rumors that are flying around until they get more substantiated. However, speaking of rumors, tomorrow it's going to be a scorcher in Montreal, and we have a scorcher of an episode to discuss tomorrow. But Lane Hutson is more important.
Yes, Lane Hutson is more important, but there's a certain cowboy hat that will be worn tomorrow for a very, very juicy rumor. So Rumor Roundup will return on Thursday's episode. You don't want to miss it, so make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcast so it jumps into your podcatcher at midnight on the day it goes out. All right, but before we get to that, we have to talk about the Laval Rocket and their sweep in the conference final, and then we'll get to the fun that is talking about the most electric rookie campaign we've seen from a Montreal Canadiens since Ken Dryden. It's tough to put into words, but that's sort of what it is. But we have to leave that. We will get to that, I promise you. First, Laval gets swept. They give up a heartbreaking goal with just over 2 minutes to go. That ended up being the game winner, a 3-2 loss and a 4-0 sweep. What are your immediate thoughts? Like, what's going through your head after you watched? You mentioned Laval had a wonderful regular season. They were the best team in the American Hockey League. They had some great moments in the playoffs, and then they leave us with that memory. Like, what goes through your head right now?
So honestly, I felt like in this particular game, the players deserved better in that. And I hate when people say things like that. It's just I felt like they made more of an effort this game than they had in their previous 3 games. They looked less lost in this game than they did in their previous games. But as you pointed out before we started recording, the fundamental aspects of the series did not change, right? So I did see better play. I truly felt like this game was going to go into 3 overtimes. My sleep schedule is a little bit relieved that it didn't, but I just felt like the players deserved a little better in that game. Like they should have played that way. If they had started playing that way earlier in the series, if they'd done like a natural progression, maybe we're looking at a 2-2 tied series as opposed to a 4-0 sweep.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think this was obviously their best game of the series. It was the first and only time they led in a game. They did not lead in any of the other instances of this series. I thought that the same problems plagued them, and that was they had the lead in the first period, and then Bizot hits Lidstrom up high, legal check to the head. He gets a 5-minute major power play. And it should have been a turning point in the game. And it unfortunately was, because Laval gives up a shorthanded goal in that 5-minute power play. They generate almost nothing of their own of consequence. And again, it's the same issue that I had through the first 3 games of the series. The power play stunk. And not only did it stink in the sense that they didn't get anything, it was actively harming them. And, a lot of the time, I think in 3 of the shorthanded goals, I think all 3 of them, they come off the stick of Logan Mailloux, who makes a mistake with the puck. And I want to quickly just touch on the fact that, folks are saying he's playing injured. I completely agree with you. We can't call the American Hockey League and say, well, Logan Mailloux was injured, so you have to take that goal off the board. Like that, yes, it's the context of that moment, but it's still... That's why that goal happened. He turned the puck over and he gave the other team a 2-on-1 going back the other way. Logan Mailloux is also not the only one playing injured. They're all hurt. All of them are banged up. They skated 7 defensemen in the warm-up because they weren't sure who was going to be ready. And sure enough, Mayu was able to play, but others couldn't. Phil Mashar played in this game. You barely saw him because he just, it's his first game in months. So, like, I saw a lot of the same problems. The officiating stunk. Frankly, I don't care. I don't care that the officiating was bad because the power play was worse.
Yes.
You have not earned that benefit of the doubt from me. It's a shame it ends on a play where Jacob Fowler kind of makes a mistake playing the puck. I thought he was great in this game. I thought he made some big saves that held them in early. He did not look like the moment was too big for him. But man, it was a lot of the same problems that we had seen throughout the series, unfortunately.
I absolutely agree with you on everything you just said. And it's like you pointed out, that power play should have been better. The thing is, like, if the Rocket were playing better, they could have overcome that bad officiating. It was
Yeah.
egregiously bad. You can't deny that. But they have the tools, they have the ability to be able to overcome that. They just weren't able to do it against Charlotte, I think. Against Charlotte and the refs and bad refs, right?
And
And if
in the first 2 games, they spent 24 minutes on the power play. They scored once, and they got scored on twice.
twice.
It's like, I understand the officiating was bad. Miss me with that. Like, I just think that they stunk. They stunk so hard. I do not care the refs were bad. It's unfortunate, but that's the game that was played in front of them.
It wasn't the story, like it was
No.
like, that wasn't the story. The story was Laval couldn't make it happen.
No, yeah, absolutely. I also, I was listening to the Bastien Gudin notebook. They had Bruno Gervais on, who's a Laval Rocket knower. And, you sort of asked about, why, younger teams sort of struggle at this stage of the Calder Cup playoffs. And, the point was generally that, players see the American Hockey League as a through league. Like, it's not one that you're supposed to stick in if you're a prospect. So prospects don't have the same level of buy-in that, say, a lot of the guys on Charlotte would have, because this is their league, right? They play in this league. They are American Hockey League players through and through. So I think it meant more to those guys than it did to a lot of the players on Laval, who, like, I wonder if some, like, David Reinbacher, I wonder if he had other plans. Like, I bet he didn't even think he'd be playing this time of year, let alone playing in the Calder Cup playoffs. And I thought he was phenomenal.
Yeah,
I thought he was fantastic, especially in Game 4. But yeah, that I found sort of telling, in the sense that, these younger teams don't necessarily have what it takes at this stage. And it's not just the Laval Rocket falling off. It's a general trend across the American Hockey League that younger teams typically don't win at this stage. Even with them not winning, do you think those prospects take anything with them to the National Hockey League for whenever they make it? Like Reinbacher for next year. We think he's going to be there.
mm-hmm.
Do you think he takes a good experience, a good feeling out of this headed into next season?
Honestly, I think that this would be something where they want to prove that stays in Laval, right?
Yeah.
Personally for me, and I hope they're disappointed. I really do, and just because this will light a fire under their butts more than anything else. I think whoever makes it to the NHL next year, or somebody like a Kapanen who can go back to the NHL next year, right? Like that's what we're looking for. I want to see, like, what I want to see is them learning lessons from this. Like, they go into the off season being like, these are the things I'm going to work on before preseason next year.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely, I think that that's how they have to approach it, right? You start to wonder if this is the last time you're seeing some of these guys in the Canadiens organization. Phil Mashar is front and center for me there. I don't know what kind of future they see for this kid in Montreal. And Logan Mayhew's, his name has jumped onto the trade boards, right? We talked about it a couple episodes ago, and that he's on Chris Johnston's trade board at The Athletic. He's the only prospect on that list. So it seems like maybe the Canadiens are starting to make plans without that player as well.
That, or this is the time to pick him up, right? Because if his game is this good in Laval, but it won't translate to the NHL level, you don't want to tank his value by playing him in the NHL all next year and then trying to sell him to a team.
Yep. Yeah. And that means there's a chance the Canadiens regret making that trade, but it's a bet they have to make now. So it's a great point, right? Like, it's sort of, the thought about Joshua Waugh. you know, the thought, the time to trade him was probably at the beginning of last season if you were going to.
Or
Now,
only this game. Like, send the
yeah,
tape of just this game.
just the series. The series, he was great.
Yeah.
I thought he
Yeah.
really, like, he sort of, you know, rehabilitated his image in my mind of a player who, when the lights get brightest, he shows up. So I really enjoyed that redemption arc from Joshua Waugh, a guy who I think we're all rooting for. We're just all kind of disappointed with how this season went. But he ends on a really solid note, and hopefully he can take that into next year and maybe steal a spot in Montreal. All right, we'll leave the Laval Rocket there until next season. We'll see how they come back next year. It'll be weird with a lot of those prospects making the leap to Montreal, but stick with us. We'll have that covered here on Locked On Canadiens. But when we come back, it's a holiday of sorts. It is Lane Hutson season review day. Very much looking forward to it. We'll jump into all the facts and figures on Lane Hutson's season when we come back. Are you looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, I love the no shells variety. It's a perfect grab and go snack for busy days, whether I'm at my desk or on a road trip, and I just need a quick protein boost. They're always my go-to. I especially like the different varieties of no-shell pistachios like sea salt and vinegar or chili roasted, and those are all available in the shell variety as well. So if you like cracking into every shell for that satisfying crunch, don't worry, they haven't forgotten about you. The in-shell options will always be a classic favorite. Get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. All right, we are back. Before we jump into the Lane Hutson festivities, we should tease our giveaway once again. We've been lax on that. We need to get back on that. We're running a subscriber giveaway on YouTube. So if you are subscribed on YouTube and you write contest entry down in the comments, you'll be entered into a drawing for this signed Josh Anderson photo once we hit 4,500 subscribers, and this Arbor Jacquet signed photo once we hit 5,000 subscribers. So subscribe, put contest entry down in the comments. That will enter you for both drawings once we hit those numbers. Good luck. Thank you for subscribing. It means a lot to us that you guys would like to see us show up in your feeds every day. Another guy I would like to see show up every day is Lane Hutson. And boy, did he this year. Go ahead.
Sorry. I sometimes still pinch myself that Lane Hutson is a Montreal Canadien.
He was the 4th guy the Canadiens picked in his draft year. They
Which is
picked 3 players
insane.
before him. So, you know, there's always, everyone likes to do that. Like, oh, all these teams passed on this player. Yeah, so did the Canadiens. 3 times, in fact. You know, I always find that very funny. What is the word that you have for Lane Hutson's season in Montreal?
Phenomenal.
Phenomenal's great. Phenomenal even. Historic for me. He broke a lot of he broke a big record. He tied an even bigger record. The one he broke was that he has the Canadiens rookie defenseman scoring record. He broke Chris Chelios' record by 1 point. He's at 66. So there's a new high watermark for rookie defenseman scoring in Montreal Canadiens history. He also tied the single season rookie D assist record. He tied Larry Murphy. Those are it's wild to think that we're talking about Lane Hutson in the same breath as those players. He still just looks like such a boy out there.
He's a little guy.
He's just a little guy. What are you going to do? Hit him? He's just a little guy. You can't do that. Which is, I kind of want to talk
Especially
about
not on his birthday.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You just need to start wearing glasses out there like Brock Faber. And then, you know, then you definitely can't hit him. You're not allowed to hit a little guy with glasses. That's crazy. Let's go through some of the numbers here because it's sort of he's a man of extremes. Extremes in both directions a lot of the time. So in assists per 60 at all strengths, he was 3rd in the National Hockey League, 1.93 per 60 among D-men, behind just Quinn Hughes and Shea Theodore. So very good company to be in. At 5-on-5, he was 8th amongst defensemen at 1.09 goals per 60. At 5-on-5, on ice goals percentage 54.4. So the Canadiens were getting most of the offense that was happening while Lane Hutson was on the ice. The expected goals were just at 50.8. It's that number doesn't jump off the page, but when you remember how bad they were at the beginning of the season, it sort of highlights how great they were when he was on the ice towards the end of the season. They
Yes.
absolutely needed him for everything at that point. 11th in the National Hockey League in ice time. 10 more players played more than Lane Hutson did this year. That's pure minutes.
That's
So
incredible.
they leaned on this rookie so much. It's why in the final segment I kind of want to talk about how they can insulate him and make sure that's not a bad decision moving forward. 7th in points among defensemen at 5-on-5 with 33. 9th in points on the power play at 21. Among D-men to play at least 1,000 minutes, so that's the top 140 or so defensemen. Hutson had the lowest percentage of starts in the defensive zone. 6% of his starts came in the D zone. That, I almost feel like that 6% was an error, that Marty probably didn't even want him out there for those.
But he had no choice.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like Hutson was better defensively than we expected him to be, especially as a rookie at his size coming into the NHL. Do you think the Canadiens are going to have to shelter him to this degree moving forward? I kind of wonder if it's going to be necessary at all.
I don't know. I think it's more just like easing him into it. I believe, you could tell if you look at players with small stature and they don't play the same position, but you could tell we talked about how they were kind of outmuscled in that Washington series. And if you compared the way that Cole Caulfield was able to play with the experience that he had versus Lane Hutson, who didn't do terribly, but didn't have that experience to lean on, I feel like him getting that experience when he's being targeted, I think, especially in the D zone, that's really going to help because I feel like he's somebody that if you ask him to elevate his game in some way, he's going to go and do the work to do it.
Yeah.
And it also, you don't know who his line mates were going to be. We did Penzel and Reinbacher when they played together for like 30 seconds during a rookie camp at some point.
Yeah.
It was very cute, like their relationship. I hope they like bro out and have that like cute little friendship. I
Yeah.
really do. But I think they won't need to. And I think that it's going to be a situation where this year they allowed him to work his magic offensively so that they could also truly understand the extent of how good he is. And then next year they're going to add some more elements to his game.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up the physicality aspect that he faced in the playoffs and in the regular season. He took 129 hits in the regular season. That was 60th among defensemen. For point of reference, Alex Carrier was third. He took 200 checks this season. Both those numbers, courtesy of Natural Stat Trick. They come from two different schools of accepting contact. Alex Carrier wants to absorb the contact, and he doesn't necessarily have the foot speed to get out of the way. Hutson, on the other hand, is great at avoiding that contact. He uses he's very nimble. He's not necessarily straight line speed fast, but he's great at sort of negotiating his way around that contact. I wonder how that progresses through his game. Is he able to do that, as more people start to figure him out, which I want to talk about in our final segment, the idea of being figured out as a rookie. But a point per game in the playoffs, folks noticed early on that the first two games, especially, he struggled because they were just kind of completely caught off guard by how intense the beginning of game one was. And they kind of got run out of the building early on. That's not going to happen ever again. At least you'd hope not, because now they know, they learned. And
Yes.
He did get better as the series went on, as I think the Canadiens did generally. If there's one more thing about this season with Lane Hutson that you would like the airtime to discuss, I'm going to give you the final minute of this segment. Is there anything else that sticks out to you that we didn't talk about?
Yes. The way that he took control of games as if he's been in the National Hockey League for 15 years. I think he didn't second guess himself, right? And it wasn't a cocky confidence. Like Nick Suzuki, you can tell sometimes. You can tell he's making you pay for something. With Lane Hutson, it wasn't like that. He just, it was just so normal to him that he's going to be able to turn around the fortunes of a single game. When the Canadiens aren't getting it together offensively, he's just like, all right, it's Lane Hutson time. I gotta go do a thing. I'll be right back.
Yeah.
And I think that, that's only going to get better as he encounters more and more competition throughout his career, right? The more he plays against the greats, the more he plays against teams that grind you and, the Carolina type
Yeah.
teams, right? The
Yeah.
more he plays against people like that, the better he's going to be at that aspect of his game. And we're going to be talking about a situation where literally, if he's not in the lineup, like kind of like Markov, when he had a bad game or he wasn't there, the Canadians looked like they couldn't get it together, right? They looked defeated. And it's going to be like that with Lane Hutson too. Again, the hope is that all the other players will be able to make up for his absence if he's ever not in the lineup or if he's ever having a bad game. But I just think the fundamental aspect of having Lane Hutson there is that he can take over the entire game without even making it look like he's doing it.
Yeah, he's a complete game breaker. And one of the lasting memories I'll have of this season with Lane Hutson was the pass he made to Cole Caulfield late in the period, I believe in game 3 of the Washington series. He had no business completing a pass like that as a rookie playing in his 3rd playoff game. And Lane Hutson just doesn't care. So the idea of doubting Lane Hutson and doubting, can he do this again, I think is going to start to come up. And when we come back, we're going to talk about how he can repeat and how the Canadians can potentially insulate him to make that repeat possible. And we'll get into that in just a minute. All right, we are back. We're wrapping up our Lane Hutson season review by looking forward. We're looking forward to how they can make this player into the best version of Lane Hutson. I've often joked on this show that this is the worst version of Lane Hutson we will ever see. I hope that's true, but it feels like the sky's the limit for this kid. One thing that we talked about when we were talking about the contract idea with him, which we're going to leave the contract discussion aside because it's an entirely different can of worms. But you mentioned the idea of the sophomore slump. We don't know who's won the Calder yet. We feel pretty confident it's going to be Lane Hutson at this point. Watch the NHL announce this and make this, seem silly. But I looked back at the last few Calder winners and I looked at their sophomore seasons to figure out, did they hit that sophomore slump? So Connor Bedard was last year's. He had 6 more points in his sophomore season than his rookie season, but he played 14 more games. So his point per game was down. And I think generally just the vibes around Bedard this year in Chicago were putrid.
Is it the fact that he was in Chicago?
Yeah, they were just miserable all year. And it looks like they're going to be miserable for a long time. Matty Beniers out in Seattle. His sophomore season, he had 20 fewer points. Sider, his second season in Detroit, he had 8 fewer points. And then this guy named Kapril Kaprizov did the dumbest thing and followed up his rookie season where he won the Calder by scoring 58 more points than he did in his rookie season. So I didn't gain much from that, but it does look like, the last few years that drop-off has been possible. And I know points aren't everything, but they are a major, they're Lane Hutson's main output, right, is his offense. So the idea of being figured out, does that apply to Lane Hutson? Do you think guys will figure out Lane Hutson?
Yes. Yeah, I think guys will figure him out. I think coaches will figure him out. But I think Lane Hutson has the skills to develop and evolve. And I think that's what's so incredible about the players that we are hoping to compare him to 2-3 years down the line, is that those guys are all small, speedy, offensively gifted defensemen, and they get figured out, and then they just come up with a new gear. And I think that Lane Hutson is one of those people. He's like Sidney Crosby in the way that Sidney Crosby is such a nerd. Like, he will watch himself play hockey games, and then he will find an aspect of the game he does not like, and then he will spend an entire summer fixing it at the age of 30. He's that kind of guy. Lane Hutson's going to be like that. Like, that's the way he is. He lives and breathes hockey. Everything he does is hockey, 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 right? And he always wants to play more, and he always wants to just be better. And I also don't even think that he's doing it like out of ego. I truly think that, he's just trying to fulfill his own potential, right?
Yeah.
He's just, I want to play more hockey. I want to do more, right? And so I think that, yes, there will be points in his career where people will figure him out, whether it's on the power play, whether it's his overall game on the ice, whether it's a move or two, but he can just switch it up. He was so fast at doing that in micro situations all season long. You could even see it in the playoffs, in the preseason, not the playoffs, the preseason. People were like, I'm getting a headache from all of his like fake outs that he's doing, right?
When Brady Tkachuk is like mocking you by doing that, you're in Brady Tkachuk's head, which I
It's
honestly I
really
don't think
funny.
takes much. I think it's kind of open season up there. But I think
It's really
to the
funny.
concept of being figured out.
Yeah.
I think Lane Hutson's the game he plays lends itself to not being figured out, or at least being able to adapt quickly. He takes what defenses give him. If you're going to give me this lane down the wing, I'm going to take it, and I'm going to go in deep and try to make a play. He doesn't overextend himself like he used to at the beginning of the season. He adapted beyond that. I also think that finding the ideal partner for Hutson long term is going to be important. It seems like Reinbacher is going to be the fit there potentially, but I think the goal right now needs to be to get Hutson off of the right side and put him back on his natural left side. We'll see how they figure that out. At the top, I teased the idea of him passing Larry Robinson's records. Larry Robinson is the franchise leader for regular season assists among a Montreal Canadiens defenseman. He has 686 assists. That's over 200 points clear of second place, who is Andrei Markov. Some rudimentary math tells me that at the pace Hutson is playing, within like 11 or 12 years, that will be his record, assuming he plays all of them in Montreal. That kind of, just the thought that seems realistic is nuts. It should not be human that we're talking about this with a rookie.
Right, especially when like we're talking about arguably the greatest defenseman in Montreal Canadiens history,
Yeah.
right? When you ask like who's the best defenseman in Montreal Canadiens history, who's the first name that comes to mind?
Yeah, it's Larry Robinson.
There you go. So I think it's just incredible that there's a guy that can be in the same conversation. It was kind of the same thing when Carey Price, and not at the very beginning. I don't think like his early years were obviously a lot more chaotic and a lot more of a roller coaster and not linear. But once it started becoming obvious that he was going to become one of the greats in this franchise, I think that moment that we realized that, I think it was just incredible. And what I really really appreciate about this is that there's so much that has been made about Montreal Canadiens in history and how the modern game, we're not going to see something like that in the cap era with all these teams, especially as the league keeps expanding. And the answer is no, actually we do. We can have that. We can have nice things. It's not going to be all of them are not always going to be on Montreal. It's the difference.
Yeah. Just looking at the points leaders in Canadiens history, or assist leaders rather in Canadiens history. You have Lane Hutson at 62, and right above him, David Savard at 63, which I find very funny that those two names are right next to
I
each
love
other.
it.
So we feel fairly confident that Hutson's going to walk away with the Calder Trophy this year. Even if he doesn't, being nominated for it, it sets up his career as one of the preeminent stars that's on his way. When are we talking Norris? When are we talking a Norris nomination for this guy? And the thing is it's just going to have to be pure offense, because he's never going to be a shutdown type defenseman. That's not who he is. And expecting Lane Hutson to be that is silly.
Erik
When can we
Karlsson,
talk about
PK
it?
Subban.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
mean, Carlson could help his own case now a little bit more than he, does. But when are we talking a Norris for this guy?
Honestly, I don't think it's going to be more than 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, at least a nomination, at least, a top 5 finish. I'm very curious to see if he gets any kind of recognition for it this season, because in scoring, he was up there among defensemen. I'm very curious. I'm not saying like anyone's going to give him a second place vote, but I think some people will throw 5th or 4th place votes at Lane Hutson, which is going to be very funny to see.
For me, the key is going to be when that comes from outside of Montreal.
Yes, and a lot of these voters are in the States. The Montreal Canadiens did not have a nationally broadcast game in the United States until the playoffs. That was the only time. I don't count the ones on NHL Network because no one gets NHL Network. They need to get rid of that channel. I'm sorry if there's any NHL Network stands out there, but we need to get rid of it. They didn't have any national exposure, and I'm hoping next year the Canadiens can kind of get that.
Yes.
For the sake of these players, they're going to have a much more exciting roster. Like, people are going to want to watch Ivan Demidov. They're going to want to watch these guys play each other. So hopefully we can get that exposure. Hopefully we're talking about back-to-back Calders with Hutson this year and Demidov next year. All right, let's take a look at our trivia from yesterday. and then head out of here. My question the other day was a very odd one. How many letters make up the longest last names in Montreal Canadiens history? And for bonus points, name some of the players. Do you have the answer to this one, Laura?
Is the answer 13?
So it's 13 characters. So if we were going by characters and including the hyphen, Raphael Harvey-Pinard would be on his own in first place. I went with letters because there's I think a funnier story to tell there. And it's 12. It's 12. It is Raphael Harvey-Pinard, Louis Berlinguet, Ed Litzenberger, Doug Wickenheiser, and Sam Montembeault. So, two guys that played games for the Canadiens this season were included in this longest, or I should say most letters used on the back of a jersey.
Yes.
Avon Post had a couple of them, Harvey-Pinard, Wickenheiser, and some dude called Litzenberger. That was also my first response to reading that name. Sorry to the family of Ed Litzenberger. I was not familiar with your game. And Super F also had Montembeault. So appreciate the effort there on those ones. It was kind of a tough one to sleuth out. So any kind of shot, I really appreciate. So thank you. Today's question, in honor of Lane Hutson's season review day. In 2022-23, Lane Hutson became the all-time freshman point scorer in Hockey East history. Who did he dethrone to take that record? So who did he dethrone to be the freshman scoring leader in Hockey East history? If you have the answer, put it in the comments down below. Send it to us any way you know how, and we'll shout you out on the next episode of the show. And that's going to do it for us today on this episode of Locked On Canadiens. Thank you so much for subscribing, for listening, making this your first listen of the day. Every day, we are Locked On Canadiens. We are free and available for you 5 days a week. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night, until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. We'll be back at it this week, covering Stanley Cup final games. So you're going to want to listen to that on Locked On NHL on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcasts. We're also available on Amazon Fire TV, on your free Fire TV channels app. Click the Montreal Canadiens logo in the hockey section. You can watch all of our episodes there as well. We are Locked On Canadiens everywhere we are posting things. Blue Sky, Instagram, TikTok. Send us in your questions, lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com. We run a mailbag every week. We do our best to get to all of your questions. And if we don't, usually we turn them into different segment ideas throughout the week. Keep it tuned in this week. Like we mentioned, tomorrow, Rumor Roundup is back, and it's a big one. You're not going to want to miss it. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we will see you tomorrow.